Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and this review we're looking at a watch that is part of a brand that is quite well known in the affordable watch industry, Filippo Loreti. Now they are actual record breakers because they were the brand that made the most amount of backing on Kickstarter for a watch for a timepiece campaign. So their campaign raised a whopping 4.8 million euros, and they got 18,500 backers. So quite an incredible way to start your company. This is one of their offerings. This is called the Venice, and this is the blue dial with rose gold case option. So price wise, £399. Now Filippo Loreti seems to be a bit of a Marmite brand. You either love, you either don't mind them at all, or a lot of people seem to quite dislike them. Now, doing a bit of research, I think the only reasons behind it are the fact that they oversold really on their initial output. I think 18,500 backers, being able to fulfill that kind of orders would be extremely difficult. So a lot of people were left without their watches for a long time, understandably so, and obviously some people were upset, understandably so as well. So I think that was just one of those things that you couldn't really help. Secondly, they do claim a lot of Italian heritage, whereas the two brothers who founded it are both Lithuanian. There is an Italian address on the website, but many people are a bit dubious as to fact how really Italian they are. Plastered all over the site is Italian designed, Italian timepieces. So that's another reason why people aren't quite so they're not quite so sure on them. I'm not particularly concerned with all of that. I'm just here and now. What kind of watch are we getting for the money? So £400, obviously, it is a fair amount of money. So let's have a look at it, discuss it, see if it is worth that. So size-wise, 42mm in diameter by a 12mm height, and then a lug-to-lug length of 51.5mm. So this is obviously a dress watch. As you can see, I've got my shirt cuff on as well, just for you. 42mm is definitely on the larger side of things for a dress watch, no doubt about it. But I think it does work. It is a very splendid looking watch, and because of the size and the blue dial with the rose gold case, it certainly does create quite the impression on the wrist. Weight wise, 108 grams. It is a nice not necessarily heavy, but it does give you a good feeling of quality because of the weight behind it. 12mm height as well. It does fit under a cuff, but it's not as slender as many other options out there, but I think at 12mm it's perfectly suitable. Water resistance is 50 meters or 5 atmospheres, so that's perfectly fine. You wouldn't go swimming with it, I wouldn't recommend it, but it is protected to a measure if you do have any accidents. It's definitely splash proof, at least anyway. The movement used is the Miyota 9100, and as you can see we have a nice clear case back displaying that, and the movement itself has a few little tricks up its sleeve as well. We have a power reserve indicator at 12, a month indicator, a day/night indicator, which basically a glorified 24-hour indicator, and a day indicator at 9, and then date at 4.5. I've put it on my Lepsy watch scope, and this one in particular is coming in at plus 9.9 seconds a day accuracy wise, so perfectly accurate, to within tolerances you would expect for a Miyota movement. Lug width is 20mm, and that tapers down a little tiny bit, so I think it works really nicely with the size of the case. Looks great on as well, and you get a pretty impressive 10-year warranty. Now obviously they've only been going for a short while, so we'll see in the long run how good that warranty ends up being, but it gives you faith that they're going to be here for a long while. So that's all the specs. £399. Let's have a look at it in even closer detail then. So starting off with the dial, as you can see we have a very luxurious, nice blue hue to it. I'll just give it a wipe. Now unfortunately the crystal is quite reflective. It is obviously this is sitting on top of the dial. It is a thick sapphire crystal, but it's highly domed. It is double domed, which is good. So as you can see, at a sharp angle, it remains visible. If it was single domed, that would be really distorted by now. So it is double domed, but the anti-reflective coating doesn't seem to do a whole lot. So that's one one key thing really that there's not many negatives, but that's one of the negatives. So as you can see, we are having a bit of difficulty seeing it in its true colours in this video. So if I get a slightly better angle, we can get to see the dial in all its glory a little bit more. So the dial is pretty nice. Loads of people, as soon as they've seen it, have been like, "Ooh, what is that? That is a lovely looking watch." Love the power reserve indicator. Can't get enough of them. Always very handy. These sub-dials, again, it's like a multi-layered dial, so the sub-dials are at a lower level, and then this sort of outer edge has a higher level as well. And then our date window, unfortunately it's white. Many people would have wanted it to be the same colour as the dial. I personally don't necessarily see it as a big issue that it's white. It makes it nice and legible as well, and it sort of goes in nicely with our white printing across the dial as well. Our applied hour markers, nice simple batons, rose gold polished to match the case, same as our hands. So our sub-dial hands are all very straightforward points. Our second hand, a point with a nice little like hollow disc as the as the counterweight. And then our main minute and hour hands, I like the style of it. It's not something you see too often. It's like a skeletonized syringe hand almost, but very smart and something a little bit unique about the watch as well. So I really like it. Yeah, I mean the construction of the dial, nothing at all to complain about. It's all really nicely done. All these polished parts of the watch, as you can see, catch the light really nicely, and it creates a lovely impression as well. So they've done a really good job on the design, excellent design and good execution as well. Moving on to the case, again, great design, great execution, nothing major to complain so far. So everything is highly polished, really highly polished, so great finishing. Be very careful though, because I've had this watch for a couple of weeks, and already there's a couple of little tiny hairline scratches. Obviously it is something that will happen with a polished case, but just be very careful, because it's inevitable that it's going to happen with a polished case. Very nice, sort of like a bulbous kind of shape. As you can see, the top is wider than the bottom, so it actually wears, it feels smaller on the wrist than it looks, which is nice. You have a less surface area actually touching your wrist. And I do also really like this toothed edge to the bezel. Splits up the case really nicely, especially when it's all polished like this. A little pusher there to advance the month, and our crown as well. It's push-pull, so you can wind it up straight away and then just pull it out to adjust the time. And as you can see, we have a little fake kind of blue jewel stuck onto the end. Again, looks very nice quality. Hopefully that won't fall out. But yeah, really nice, really good to use as well. Really easy to wind if say for instance you've not worn it for a couple of days and you want to give it a quick wind. The crown is very good for that. Okay, the lugs, nice and elegant, but a little bit angular as well to create kind of like a modern feel. So nothing too crazy to comment there, but nice sharp angles showing decent manufacturing on the case. Moving on to the case back, so we have our exhibition window obviously for the movement, and this case back is secured just by 4 screws with a little Italian slogan on the back, and also our limited edition and our serial number as well. So whilst we're here, the movement, as you can see, is Miyota. So underneath the rotor, it's quite reasonably plain, industrial looking, nothing stunning about it, but they've done a good job in creating this custom rotor with their logo lightly engraved and a couple of other details as well. So good job for them for making the effort to make it a little bit more fancy, if you will. Okay, so moving on to the strap. Lovely luxurious blue colour to go with the dial. Really good quality as well. As you can see, we have a slightly lighter blue stitching, so they both complement each other really nicely. So very good thickness. You know, if you look at it closely as well, pretty well just manufactured and made in general as well. Good stitching, nice little print work on it. Italian leather, and as you can see, we also have quick release pins, which is always a plus. So really do appreciate them. Nice and easy to replace the strap if you want to. I also like the way they curve to match the contour of the case, so that's a good plus. We have a butterfly clasp, very easy to use as you'd expect. You know, it's a fairly straightforward butterfly clasp, but it's fully polished rose gold. So again, be very careful, particularly this top bar. The logo is nice and deeply engraved on it, but this is one key part that is likely to get a fair amount of scratches on it, so just be careful with that. 2 buttons either side just to release it, like so, and then putting it on, I tend to click that side and then push that through and click that side. So very nice and easy to use, easy to adjust as well. You just flap this little bottom bit down and then move it to where you want it to go. Okay, so let's put the macro lens on then, and we'll have a look at it in even closer detail. Ooh. Having a bit of struggle with that. There we go. Okay, so just give it a quick wipe. So there's the power reserve, and another subdial here. Oof. Let me just try and tweak this a bit. Okay, so here's our day-night indicator as well, our day indicator, and our date window as well. As you can see, you know, everything's nicely done. You can't really complain about any of the finishing of it. And our hands, our syringe hands, polished, and just really good manufacturing there. Here's our hour markers. A flat bottom with a rounded top, which again, it's not something you really appreciate or notice to the naked eye, but when you look at it up close, it is a nice little design feature there. Okay, so just give the case a quick wipe, and we'll have a look at the case. So here we go. Here's our nice toothed edge to the bezel, and our angular lugs there. You can see our nice edging to it. Always very difficult getting a decent shot on a polished case. But if we go this side, we can see our little pusher, and then our crown as well. So that's our little jewel on the end, our grip, decent thick toothing on the crown. And then if we flip it over, look at our case back. So that's laser etched rather than engraved, which is a shame. It would be nicer if it was properly engraved, these details on the case back, but never mind. And then as we're here, we'll have a look at the movement. So there's the balance spring ticking away there nicely. Have a look at the, see if I can get a shot of the bridge as well. We have slight bit of pearlage on it, but nothing too crazy. So here's our nice
rotor with our detailing on it, a little logo and some specs as well. So yeah, nice little touch there. Moving on to the strap then, here's our top. As you can see, very nice smooth leather, good quality finishing as well, and that lighter blue stitching as well. If we have a look at the underside, we'll have a look at these stamps. So that's our genuine leather stamp, and then this side we have the logo as well. And then finally, let's just have a look at the buckle. So you can see there we have a very nice deep engraving of the logo, and just like a couple of other detail parts of the underside, and our little clasp as well with our button there. Okay, right, so when you put it under a macro lens, really is pretty flawless. I've not found a single issue with the watch at all yet. Obviously I've only had it for a couple of weeks, but so far so good. I've also been genuinely impressed with its general fit and finish and quality. So I'm of the impression that it will last a very long time. I don't think anything's likely to go wrong with it. The only thing I could think of is if there is anything, if you whack the watch, that might come out. But that's just one thing to be maybe concerned of. I don't know. It could end up being perfectly fine. The watch in itself, lovely design. You can't deny it. It looks really, really smart. Looks the part. And as we've seen, everything's put together really nicely, very well finished and manufactured as well. So, as far as I'm aware, there's no reason at all not to like Filippo Loreti. I think it's a really well put together timepiece. They seem like a really honest brand at the moment now, trying to really get out there. Yes, there's a good amount of marketing on their part. So in some instances, maybe you have to look through that and just see the watches for what they really are, which I thankfully have been able to do, and I hope that this has been helpful. So I think their claim may be that it's worth a watch over $1,000. That might be pushing a little bit, but one thing is definitely for sure: it is a watch that is great value for money at its RRP of £399. Great movement, the Miyota, great finishing. As I mentioned before, the only thing that I would like to see improved is the anti-reflective coating on the sapphire crystal. That's, in my opinion, the only thing that can be improved on this watch. So yeah, a lovely watch, the Filippo Loreti Venice. I've been very impressed with it, and that's what it's all about.